And we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Niki Lopez of Niki Lopez Creative, and you're watching The Circle, where every Tuesday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm talking to artists, activists, social entrepreneurs, people doing great things in the world today. And today I have a very special guest, Taryn Möller Nicoll. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Niki. It is so wonderful to be here with you tonight. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, absolutely. It's an honor to have you. So while we're getting set up, I see we're live a couple of places. We are live on Facebook under Niki Lopez Creative, as well as Outclick Magazine, the group The Circle 19, and Niki Lopez art page. We're also live on YouTube. So remember, if you're in the group, I can't see your name. So if you want us to mention your name, you have to put it in the comment section. So Taryn is a curator, an arts educator, and a mother. I love that you added that into your to who you are. So that's amazing.
Thank you so much. And I'm speaking to a fellow artist, curator, and mother. So I think that we have a very distinct bond there.
Yes, absolutely. So, I know you do a lot of things. So let's, dive in. What was the spark that inspired your creative journey?
I think that is such an important question. The origin story for each one of us in a field like this. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and unfortunately, the economy of South Africa doesn't really support a career in the creative arts for most people. There might be a couple of people who strike it really lucky. The tourist style artwork or kind of more conventional, stereotypical African art, which is not always really African art. People can do fairly well off of that, but I was really lucky in that although they didn't seem to be a huge amount of prospects in the arts, my parents were art lovers from the start and really supported my love of the arts, my artistic ability, and they never discouraged me from any of it. So I definitely have to give them a lot of credit for my journey so far. My father was an excellent draftsman, so very skilled at technical drawing. My mother is a textile artist. She does sewing, weaving, knitting. She also has an incredible instinct for color. So I grew up with those influences around me all the time. And one of my favorite stories from my childhood is I used to beg my dad to pause Disney movies and draw cartoons from the still frames. And because both of my parents were full-time working pharmacists, they were at work a lot. And one day I got tired of waiting, so I decided to freeze the movie myself, to just press pause and start drawing on my own. And that's really when I took charge of my own sketching and drawing ability. The other thing that I think is important, that having grown up in South Africa, even though I was never discouraged from pursuing a career in the arts, I always had a personal motivation and impetus to explore many different avenues. So as much as I loved art and art history, I always really loved researching biology, science, English, writing, and I really was motivated to pursue a life and a career that merged all of these things.
Awesome. And I think that's a really important part to kind of underline, because sometimes when, parents have creatives, they kind of want to gear them to like a better job, an engineer or this or that. And so, and I think also the fact that your parents are also creative, they were able to really support that. So that's amazing.
They were able to think from both sides of the brain, if we must say that. They themselves are scientists, are pharmacists, are chemists, but they both know what it means to experience the fulfillment that creative endeavors can bring. So I definitely had a head start from the beginning.
Awesome. And I'm going to take a couple of comments. I see a couple of comments coming through. We have Karen saying, hello, ladies.
Hi, Karen.
Inspiring mothers from a couple of creative mothers to another creative mother, creative souls. And then we have someone on Periscope, Muratedi. Hello from where? Hello, where from? Oh, well, you said South Africa.
Cape Town, South Africa. Yes.
Yes, that's awesome. And that's so interesting because you don't, I don't know too many people from that area. So it's nice that you had that, different background and, you traveled a lot of places. So that, must influence your art in some ways.
It does. I think that it influences my curatorial practice, honestly, more than my artistic production. Mm-hmm. I look at the science of biology, of anatomy of the human body as a leveling, it equalizes all of us. But really, having grown up in a place like South Africa, it makes me very, very aware of the fact that we all live crucially different lives. And I think that it's important to acknowledge at this moment, I was a white person growing up in South Africa. So I was aware my whole life of a huge degree of just implied privilege, of having, I was talking about this head start that I had with my parents, but just culturally, racially, socially, it doesn't matter what I thought or felt about it. It was the truth. So coming into curatorial practice and understanding the need for representation, for equity, it's something that I experienced my whole life. I saw those massive gaps and differences, and it's something that I'm incredibly proud to be able to acknowledge, utilize, and hopefully, change or affect positively in my curatorial practice.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because you're saying like creating equity and, sometimes, when people talk about intersectionality and allyship, and sometimes that's not, highlighted enough. So it's nice that you're like coming from another perspective, but still having those intentions and still, having some integrity about creating those spaces for how we should be functioning. So that's amazing that you're doing that type of work.
Thank you. There were so many advantages that I have. Obviously, I come to my work and my artistic production and my curatorial work from the position of an immigrant and a woman, but at the same time, I can see where just I was able to achieve a lot of what I've done because I have privilege and I have these advantages. So in some ways, I speak the language of, as I said, the woman, the other, the immigrant, but in a lot of ways, I see where my advantages have been, and the fact that, I did nothing to achieve those things. So they should not be mine. They should be all of ours. Mm-hmm. So, coming into this country, we worked very hard to get here, but at the same time, I have educated parents, their parents are educated. There's this legacy of advantages that we should all have. So that's one of my goals as a curator, is to really speak into that and be honest about it. Mm-hmm. Try to form bonds rather than make people defensive or to feel excluded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I noticed in some of your work, you kind of blends the line between art and science. What's the connection or fascination for you between the two?
So there is a practical fascination that, again, comes from the type of environment that I grew up in. And then there's a more conceptual, a more conceptual approach. But as I mentioned, both of my parents are pharmacists. And in South Africa, we don't have these mega pharmacies that are more like grocery stores. Then hold on one second for me. My dog is crying and she's not going to stop until I pick her up.
Oh, yes.
Come here, baby. Come here. That's my doggy. So I grew up in my parents' boutique pharmacy, and a part of that experience enabled me to witness these daily conversations that my parents were having with their clients, their patients, about these physical experiences that they were having with their bodies. And, you know, we all think that we're immortal and impervious until we struggle with something to do with our physical being, and we realize, you know, we're really just at the whim of our own chemistry, you know, what our body decides to do. And oftentimes it's not our choice. So I got used to these really difficult discussions taking place every single day as though they were completely normal. And I became really fascinated with human beings' communication and the body. In terms of art and science, I really don't think of the fusion of art and science as anything new. And that's really, really critical. Rather, I see the acknowledgement of the connections between art and science as an overdue return to an age-old legacy of interdisciplinary discovery and innovation. It was really only, you know, around the 1800s, the 1850s that arts and sciences diverged and split. And before that, you know, most artists were scientists, were poets, were mathematicians, were architects. There was not as much of a divide, if there was a divide at all. They were not seen as distinct disciplines, but more the result of people asking questions, you know, and them answering these questions took different forms. It occurred in different modes. So I actually have one of my favorite quotes that I wanted to read. I usually use this quote when I'm starting out a new semester with my students. And it's by Leon Battista Alberti. And it goes, "I used to marvel and at the same time to grieve that so many excellent and superior arts and sciences from a most vigorous antique past could now seem lacking and almost wholly lost. We know from remaining works and through references to them that they were once widespread. Painters, sculptors, architects, musicians, geometricians, rhetoricians, and similar noble and amazing intellects are very rarely found today, and there are few to praise them. Thus, I believed, as many said, that nature, the mistress of things, had grown old and tired, and no longer produced geniuses and giants, which in her more youthful and glorious days she had produced so marvelously and abundantly." So Alberti wrote he wrote that in the 1400s, in the 15th century. And it really just goes to show how all of those different occupations or fields were merged at the time. And yet he also laments the loss of those, you know, dualistic minds many, many hundreds of years ago. But it's one of my favorite quotes because it shows how, you know, for so long, if you were a mathematician, it was equally possible that you were a sculptor or a painter. So I'm definitely more interested in art and science as a return, as an affirmation of the professionalism, the seriousness, the effort, the discipline that is in creatives, and that they might be able to, and that they might frequently engage those strengths and those traits in both artistic and scientific conversations.
Yeah. And then, you know, it kind of makes me, it brings to mind a lot of times through school where, you know, there's been so many, at least when I was in school, there were teachers who were like really advocating to have the arts as one of the main subjects, the same way as you have math and science and reading, and showing the connection between how the arts can improve those skills, but somehow we've separated it. And I think that's where we kind of went wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, almost every type of artwork, especially art produced by people they've really evolved, and they've started to challenge and investigate what art is, what painting is, what it means to be an artist. Almost all art is scientific in some way. You know, it's optical, it's structural, it's mechanical. I challenge you to find one photographer or sculptor or even printmaker who isn't well versed in chemistry or physics of some sort. And it all challenges or builds upon, you know, a social theory, like a formal theory, psychology. So I believe, as do many people, that all art is science to a certain extent. It's just a different way of performing the experiment.
Absolutely. We have a question from Karen. She said, did you ever do sculpture? I have a desire to learn this skill in the future.
I took sculpture classes in college. I would do sculpture more as a preliminary study for work. So oftentimes my pieces would be collage-like, but I would sometimes make these little mini models of them and light them so that I could get rendering and shadow correct. But sculpture required, I found painting and drawing and collage to be much more spontaneous. And at various points in my life, I would need to, sometimes be painting in a studio and other times be painting and drawing on my coffee table. And I always felt that sculpture required much more space and preparation and tools. So I wish I could tell you that I really went down that avenue, but it is something that I encourage you to check out. And if not sculpture, then ceramics or working with air clay. And I think that understanding of 3D form, it is attainable regardless of what environment you're in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. So never thought of calling arts a science, but this is a very interesting thought. Yeah. What piqued your interest into going into curatorial work?
Sorry. Again, my puppy, my husband just got home, so she wants to go say hi.
Hey, we're live, you know.
Yeah, this is
usually she's like meowing or something. I'm like, this is not your show.
It's always the cat's show and it's always the dog's show. And if our children were awake, it would be our kids' show too.
Yes, absolutely.
So curatorial work was such a fertile opportunity to explore what art actually does once it leaves the artist studio. So as the creative, you're experiencing your own thought process, you're testing out different theories. But one of my favorite professors and probably my most influential mentor, she asked us at the beginning of the very first class that I ever had with her, she asked us if we would be prepared to create artwork in a vacuum. So we'd be given every tool, all the supplies, all the supports we could ever need, but we have to create it in a closed studio with the doors locked and no one ever sees it. Will we still be willing to be artists? Would there be any point? And when it was put like that, we all, myself and all my classmates, we all mourned the lack of interaction and communication, the moment for dialogue and reflection, those pressure points of having ideas your preconceived notions be challenged by what you're seeing in a piece, maybe having uncomfortable concepts thrown your way and you have to really look at them. You lose all of that when you're just making, for yourself and your work isn't seen. So I'm sure there are plenty of artists that would love this idea of a reclusive studio, not bothered by anyone. I think the majority of artists, they really do thrive on that exchange that takes place. And so being a curator, is really being an architect of that communication. You utilize a very extensive set of tools, so data, research, understanding of exhibition and display techniques, lighting, signage, just space between works. Space communicates so much. And you can use existing works of art to have hundreds of different conversations about different topics. So it's really taking artwork and like turning on the light for that conversation to take place. So curatorial work was always the next step for me because I love people, I love communities, I love what art can achieve when in contact with a broad and diverse public. And being that intermediary was something that I was really passionate about from the start. So I was able, during both my undergrad and graduate school, and then afterwards, and definitely now at the Frank, I always worked as a curatorial assistant, an assistant curator, and now I'm the chief curator. And a lot of that happened because of my studio knowledge. So understanding of the artist process, technique and materials, but also a very rigorous art history and art theory knowledge, and an empathy and consideration of the viewer. So when you're thinking about what art can accomplish, it shouldn't just be art made for other artists or arts professionals or people with that existing knowledge. You have to, I think that it's equally interesting what people from completely different fields, completely different cultures and backgrounds, how they respond to your work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have Deborah Kerr saying hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Deborah.
You're a curator who's also an artist. What are some of the distinctions between your approach and process that may differ from other curators who may not have that art background?
So I love this question that you asked. It's something that I think myself when I'm working with a lot of other curators. I do a lot of collaborative work, and I do that because we bring different strengths to the forefront. So maybe I'll answer your question by rewording the question. So in thinking about this, I'm reminded of the opening chapter of the book Painting as Language by Jean Robertson and Craig McDaniel, where they start out their textbook by saying, the age-old question is, what is painting, right? And it seems like a totally expected question, but every step that you take opens up more and more questions. So you can answer that by saying, a painting is anything that is painted. Well, does that include a house or a car? Okay, no. So a painting is what a painter makes. Well, that opens the vastly more cavernous question of what is a painter? Who is a painter? So they decided to reword the question as what is painting made of, which allowed them to go down the road of content. So materials, techniques, formal qualities, cognitive meaning. And so I want to sort of use the same strategy by saying, not like how do I differ from other curators, but what kind of curator do I aim to be because of the experiences and concerns and priorities that I've had as a studio artist. And this is very, very applicable in my role as chief curator of the Frank, because we're really a gift and a love letter to our community. So the role of a curator varies so widely. It goes from being an exhibition coordinator or designer to a scholar, art historian, a researcher, or a social practitioner. But for me, I'm really interested in being a curator who functions as an advocate for both the artist and members of the community, and being that advocate by using art, data, art theory, educational strategy, and exhibition display techniques as a medium for dialogue and discovery. So I like to think that because I'm a studio artist, I am very sensitive to the process and the experience of the maker. So I'm very defensive of artists. I'm a like my number one priority is making sure that artists get paid for their work. They're promoted, they're compensated, they're treated with respect and professionalism, because they are professionals. And to teach them to expect that as well from other places where they work and where they show their pieces. But also acknowledging this very, very profound platform for communication that is a public art venue, that is a art gallery, especially a nonprofit gallery, and being bold. So using that as an opportunity to affect change, challenge concepts of the normal, the natural, the me, the not me, in a way that is respectful, responsible, very, very specific. Asking these huge, broad questions can be very overwhelming. So getting specific and being approachable. A very long question to a very short answer.
No, but I love the answer, and I agree and appreciate so many things you say. And I think, when I do an exhibition and working with other artists, I hear that feedback sometimes when they're dealing with me versus another person. So it's just, it's nice to hear your perspective, but I also agree with all those things. And I think it's very good to mention those things.
Good. I'm so glad. I think that, South Florida is unique in the fact that we do have a lot of studio artists that do curatorial work. And then there are a lot of cultural facility managers and directors that don't necessarily have like an art history background, but they've got a public administration background, a sociology background, international relations background, which also brings a totally different perspective to the forefront. So I think that it's one thing to hang artwork on walls. Anyone can do that. We all do that at some point. But it's what influences your goals and motivations behind doing that. Why do we put work on a wall at all? What does it do when it's there? What is our public experiencing and thinking? What is, a 75-year-old plus going to feel about the work versus a 6-year-old who's in there for a field trip? And I think that's really where programming, like cultural programming, comes into play as well, as being an additional tool to help people relate to the work and to feel like they're a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. You've curated exhibitions in Beijing, the Museum of Modern Art in Tijan, Afghanistan, now the Frank. Is there any exhibition that you've curated that stands out for you?
Without a doubt, 100% our current exhibition at the Frank right now. And I know that might sound like a shameless plug, but our current exhibition, Biological Futurism, will probably go down in my personal and career history as the most impactful, challenging, surprising, and fulfilling exhibition that I've ever curated. So I'm wondering if maybe I can screen share for a moment.
Sure.
Let me open up a new window. Now, Niki, does this let me select a window that I will be screen sharing, or does it just screen share my whole?
When you go to screen share, it says entire screen, application, or Chrome tab. So you could pick one.
Okay. So I will try doing that in just a second. But I can start before we jump in by saying that this exhibition was obviously a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, but without being about the pandemic. So the selection of artists that I have for the show was one that we put together years ago, And I had been dreaming of seeing this exhibition come to fruition in the Frank for months, if not, close on 2 years. So when we had to switch to an online format, at first, I certainly went into it with concerns and probably mourning what I had initially expected it to be. And I think that's where a lot of pain has come in for everyone this year, is expectation versus completely unexpected reality. And that was no different for me. But the artists that I worked with on the show, every single one of them was so enthusiastic, so professional, so cooperative, and so trusting of me to really use their work in this unfamiliar territory, because we were not just going to put a couple of thumbnails on the wall. We were not going to do a slideshow. We were going to build the interior of the Frank from the ground up and answer one question for each of the artists, which is, if you did not have to contend with the constraints of a physical show, a physical artwork production, what would you do with your work? So would it be bigger? Would it be freed from the constraints of the white rectangle, the piece of paper? Would you, go on like just massive scale? Would you create an environment? Would you take a 2D work and turn it into the third dimension? What would you do? So that was really what I chose to do with this exhibition, was to answer a lot of those questions or reinterpret works in such a way that they fulfilled desires and wants and needs of the artists that they hadn't seen in effect until this time. Okay, so let me see.
I have Karen saying, I'm going to come and see it.
Well, you can go to www.thefrankgallery.org, because it doesn't exist in our gallery space at all. But if you go to our website, you can access it day and night, 24/7, and I'll show you how to get there right now.
And while you're pulling it up, I'll take a couple comments. We have Eric. Greetings, Eric and the Jazzers, checking in from Fort Lauderdale via the Boogie Down Bronx. Sending support and blessings. Happy holidays. Thank you, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Okay, so let's add to the stream.
Okay. All right. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, let me move this window so I can just see where I'm driving. So this is our official Frank website, thefrankgallery.org. And make my screen a little bit bigger. So you can click exhibitions and then on view biological futurism, or you can just click on virtual tour, which I'll do right now. This exhibition is co-curated with the director of Interactive Initiative, Samuel Lopez de Victoria. He was an amazing partner. And all you have to do is click play. I know we're a little over time here, so I'll be very quick. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to enter full screen. Oh, can you see it full screen, Niki? Or
let's see. Okay, I've made it full screen. Well, full screen for the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we see it full screen.
Okay. So you can actually see the entire interior of the Frank. And none of this exists in our space. I see there's a little bit of a lag on your end, but it's a little smoother than that when you're viewing the show on your own. So don't worry. I'm going to hop into some of the project rooms here. So Gretchen Scharnagel, who's a professor of studio art at Florida International University. Her work, she's an environmental artist and an activist, and her work is about climate change. extinction, diversity loss, global warming. And she does these incredibly detailed, thoughtful drawings and paintings using only materials that she has on hand. So this particular room is about species extinction and diversity loss. But what I did with these rooms is her work is so confrontational in nature that I decided to up the ante and to make it so that you're standing in our little project rooms where you can actually see the architecture of the Frank's project room, but you can't look away from her message. Mm. So every single one of these positions lets you view the Frank from every angle. So you can look up, you can look down. I'll hop into this room and I'll show you 2 more perspectives, and then I encourage everyone to go and look at it on their own. This is really important with this show. Even though the works are not installed in person, I still really wanted the technical skill and material the material textures to be visible. So there are a lot of areas where you can get really, really close to the work, and you can see the artist's brush strokes. You can see the different colors that they used. You can see just the little individual details. So the artist's hand is still very, very much intact. You can see our shadows on the floor.
That's amazing.
We're very, very lucky to have so much support from the city of Pembroke Pines, who, in their goal of remaining safe and keeping the whole community safe, they are ensuring that our cultural facilities are still closed to the public. But I had so much support in creating this show. We were able to provide lecture opportunities, lots of publicity, educational components. So many of these artists have been able to give artist lectures and workshops as well. And then, of course, they're able to share this exhibition with everyone across the world. So they're able to continue with their artistic progress. And again, we all went down this journey of collaboration together. So my hope is that, we all were able to learn with each other here. And even though, it was definitely venturing into the unknown, I appreciate each of them so much for just for their incredible spirit along the way. Mm-hmm. So this is Georgetta Fondos. Over here, I'm actually not going to click on her work, but if you click on these pieces, they have sound. So I think that the sound will disturb us here, but you actually hop into a 3D room that places you inside her textile pieces. So every direction you look, you can see the grain and weft of her fabric, and sort of transforms her pieces into environments in their own right. And then we have these sculptures based on Lisa Hackey's work. We created these sculptures, but they're based on textures of her paper sculptures that she makes by hand. And then the murals on the walls behind these pieces are by San Francisco-based artist Lisa McCutcheon, who does these very, very sensitive, beautiful collaged photographic vellum paper works. And I decided to take them like floor to ceiling, wall to wall. So please do take a look at them closely. And then the final perspective, I won't navigate around this whole room, but I'm just going to show you the works of Miami-based artist Judith King. She's at the Big House Arts Complex. She created these really exceptional organisms and specimens. Some of them are existing species. Others are fantastical and are based on existing or extinct species, but with her imagination kind of fueling that. Some are terrestrial, some are, some would live, some are aquatic. And then these 3D sculptures are by Andy Lomas, who's based in London. So he's a special effects supervisor for major motion pictures like Avatar and The Matrix, but he's also an artist who explores the intersection of art and science. And he created these sculptures for the Frank space. He camera matched them to their individual positions. And he used ray tracing software to make sure that the lighting corresponded with our gallery lighting. So really tremendous collaboration. And that is where I will leave you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I did add in the ticker, the website, thefrankgallery.org. It's also in the comments. So, if you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube. Karen says, amazing, and thank you for this share. Gonna share.
Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate that so much.
And we have Grecia from Femin Africa. Thank you, Niki, for hosting such a great guest artist. Looking forward to viewing the online exhibition at the Frank. The preview looks amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It really was such an exceptional undertaking, but it's something that I am incredibly proud of. And all of the artists, they get, all of the credit in the world for what they contributed to this exhibition, because it wasn't just send me your pictures and I'll talk to you later. It was not that. It was a relationship for several weeks, building this from scratch. And again, fulfilling the city of Pembroke Pines' commitment to arts and culture with no boundaries to participation. On the Frank's website as well, if you go to the Education tab and you drop down, you'll see that we have a virtual classroom that is full of workshops, craft tutorials, lectures. Niki Lopez is one of our workshop presenters. So if you go there, you'll see a drawing tutorial that is great for all ages, but it's also designed specifically for children and individuals with autism. So it's very, very, friendly for people of all abilities. And we're adding content every single week. So it's all for free. There's no subscription required at all. We would just love for you to participate. And if you want to get in contact with the Frank, you can contact us at thefrank@ppines.com. Awesome. And definitely follow us at the Frank Pembroke Pines on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, absolutely. So, and if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, there's links in the description to all of that. And we have Karen says, so professional. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much.
Are there any connecting themes or statements with your curatorial work?
So one of my priorities, I always try to challenge myself in terms of content and theme. So I never curate to my preference or my taste. I think that there's a big difference between being able to discern quality and then just having a personal preference. So I'm always exploring and learning and challenging myself in terms of how certain works are viewed, what the artist's intentions were versus what their final reception can be. But I think accessibility and the idea of being approachable so that the artist's message can really go much further than, like I said before, the walls of their studio or their immediate audience. So really harnessing this ability to engage people of all different backgrounds, all degrees of knowledge, all different perceptions and ways of seeing. So I really steer clear of esoteric art and conversations that requires a really, really deep understanding of pre-existing concepts, theories, or historical knowledge. I do use didactic wall text to a certain extent, but I also think that, you know, Pierre Bourdieu, he's an amazing French sociologist who established the idea of everyone having a habitus, this kind of social baggage, and that is very, very much at play for individuals from different subsections of society, especially in a museum and particularly an art gallery. So many studies have been done analyzing the populations and typical audience members that would come to an art museum or a gallery. So normally those people are from more affluent groups of society that have pre-existing knowledge, so middle to higher class. And I think that the overarching theme in all of my curatorial work is to try to break those boundaries down. So really create an inviting atmosphere. My staff are incredibly important in really encouraging dialogue and discussion, creating this environment of warmth and acceptance and celebration, and then also promoting representation. It's something that I'm very, very aware of. I really do look at like all of my artists and really try to make sure that when people come to the gallery that they can see themselves somewhere along the way, that they see these possibilities for themselves that maybe they didn't previously see in fine art galleries or museums. So the common thread for me is probably more to do with the social practice and the community engagement than it is to do with any particular kind of content or subject.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We have Candy Lopez saying hello. Yes, Candy's another art mom, and she was on the circle last week. So definitely go and check it out. And we have Hildana. Hello. Thanks for being here. Can you share a little bit about your arts education? I know you're an art educator. Can you share a little bit about what you do as an art educator?
Absolutely. So right now I'm an adjunct professor at Nova Southeastern University. We just acknowledged our friend Candy Lopez, who popped in on the chat bar, but she is an associate professor of painting in their fine art department, and I'm one of her adjunct faculty. So far I have taught drawing, museum studies, and gallery practices, and I'm on the roster to teach painting next semester. And then at LSU, where I received my MFA, I taught many classes there. So beginning figure drawing, intermediate figure drawing, painting, 2D, introduction to visual culture, lots and lots of different classes. And then all throughout my undergrad, actually, and then my first year in my master's program, I was a TA in the art history department as opposed to the fine art department. So I did a lot of work. I wasn't the primary instructor, but I did a lot of tutoring, grading of papers, paper development, and test prep with students from modern art, history, contemporary art, art theory, postmodern theory, and mostly visual culture. I didn't in visual culture.
Wow.
But mostly like modern art onwards.
Okay. That's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some or who do you have any inspiration? Do you who or what? Yeah, I guess that inspired.
Absolutely. So I just in my personal life, seeing the people around me work incredibly hard. I'm inspired by my leadership, by My colleagues and leaders at the City of Pembroke Pines, the former chief curator of the Frank, one of my best friends, and just one of the greatest people I've ever known, Joshua Carden, amazing artists and mothers. I think it's so important to find people who are doing what you hope to do. The most basic way of saying it, but Candy definitely does that. You definitely do that. I look at women like Megan Kent at Art and Culture Center Hollywood, Michelle Weinstein over at Girls Club. All of these individuals are incredibly profound, women, artists, scholars, and mothers, partners, collaborators. And then, in terms of artists, Louise Bourgeois has been one of my favorite artists. She's someone who really, really went deep into the realm of psychology and relationships without. She explored being emotional without being sentimental. So that's a very, very, very pivotal dynamic for me. How do you explore provocative topics like emotion without spoon feeding the viewers? So she was someone who I saw do that to a great extent. All clay. John Curran, I'm not sure about him as a person, but his painting technique is really incredible. These, really beautifully, almost like traditional old master painting styles, these mannerist distortions. His technique is something that I really, really admire. And then Julie Moretu, for sure, her expensive canvases that hit on everything from structural engineering, architecture, abstraction. They're very, very inspiring to me. So I have a lot of curatorial inspirations. Writers like Amelia Jones, Carol Duncan. They inspire me greatly. Someone like Arthur Danto, his way of his actual writing techniques are so conversational. I can imagine him sitting with a cigar in an armchair in my living room, kind of making me feel small but inspired at the same time. So yeah, those are some of my inspirations. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. What's some advice you could give to someone who may be starting that journey as a curator or having a feeling of exploring that field?
Well, there is a lot of study and research that goes into it. So just having a foundation of ambition and discipline. So having the structure to really, really sit down, research various topics, do a lot of reading. So you have to just be prepared to do your research and know your content, know your subject matter. But I think this is just more general advice, is that if you take the initiative and you do more than is expected of you, if you push further, you will often succeed, not only just in terms of what the job requires you to do, what the field requires you to do, but you set that standard for yourself and you start to differentiate yourself, not only from just kind of a general all other careers, but then you start to set yourself in the career field. So take the initiative, ask questions that few other people are asking, or maybe topics that have been put down and haven't been reopened again. Professionalism, I'm such a broken record about this, but it is absolutely critical. Be someone that other people want to work with. Make other people's lives easier. So, and I know that it's really hard now, right? During the pandemic, we're all being hit with 5 million emails. So even just staying on top of emails is really tough. But, return phone calls, show up when you say you're going to show up, under promise and over deliver. It's better to do, 5 things really, really well than it is to do 20 things okay. So, just being focused, having a vision and seeing it through. The professionalism will get you far, not only as a curator, and a lot of professionalism is just common sense. So there's really no secret to that.
Yeah.
But doing your research, I'm not a big fan of form letters. I know that they do go out and I do read them, but when you're trying to have a relationship with someone, whether as an artist reaching out to a museum or a gallery, or a curator trying to make connections with other organizations, I think it really goes a long way to personalize those communications, make sure that you've taken the time to look at what that person, organization, or business entity is doing. Take some time out of your life, show them that you've looked at what they're doing. And that's normally a bit of an exchange. Like, you take some time, you make them a priority, they might make you a priority too. So that is some advice, but just do as much reading as you can, as much research as you can. Try to get off Instagram and Facebook. I know we're all living by Instagram and Facebook right now, but there are a lot of museums and galleries that are open. Very, very brave. They're really doing everything that they can to welcome people back in. So go and see art. If you're an artist, a curator, an art educator, go and see it. See it. And then, the research and the seeing will combine. And then the professionalism does the rest.
Absolutely. I have a comment, but I don't know. The ending of it is a little crazy for me. Hildana said, "Love to hear from well-informed women. Hearing her makes me feel really dumb." That's not the intention.
You are not dumb. You are not dumb.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely not our intention here. But
inspire to spark, get that spark going. Walter said great advice.
Thank you.
And Karen, go and see art. Love to get inspired. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there will be 2 things, two desires that will never, ever, ever go away. We always wish that we had like more time to see more artwork. When people travel to different countries, like that's always at the top of the list. Go to museums, go and see the art that defines that community. And we have art that defines our community, as well as external stimuli coming in from other cities, states, and countries right here in our backyard in Broward County. There's really, really high quality exhibition programming in this area. So we have an amazing opportunity. You don't have to wait until you go on a trip. You can see it right here. And no one ever regrets going and seeing art. They might have questions about it. They might not really understand why it got a spot on the wall, but sometimes those are the pieces that stay with you and keep you thinking and asking questions. So, that's one thing. And then feedback and conversation. When people leave art school, that's the thing that they miss the most. Connecting with other people, getting other opinions. And so what that really comes down to is like going to other people's exhibitions and shows, and seeking out those conversations, and really creating a community for yourself. So these are all things that will help you grow in your profession, and then they'll help your career to advance as well. So really, really great in terms of, technique and subject matter, and then wonderful professional advantages too.
Absolutely. Oh, that's better comment, Hildana. Make me inspired to learn more. Absolutely.
Yay.
With all that you do, I'm curious to if you have any self-care practices.
I do. For a long time, and this has nothing to do with art or culture or even education, really. But I love to take just a little bit of time at the end of every day and sort of like mark the end of the day. Until very recently, I always fought the sun going down. And I always fought, turning off the nightlight. There was not enough time to get everything done in the day that I wanted to get done. And I would often, fall asleep still working on my laptop, much to the chagrin of my beautiful and amazing husband. But really just taking a little bit of time out, putting your phone away, turning the computer and the TV off, or just stepping away from it for a little while. And for me, I like to just like wash my face, like basically like wash the whole day away and just take a few minutes for me. Sometimes that got away from me as a mother, and as things got more and more busy, like that was one of the first things to go. But just, taking some time to just like focus on myself, that was really helpful. And it's not something that really costs anything, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. So I do that. But probably the most critical thing that I do is I just really keep in contact with people that I love. So I do take every opportunity to make phone calls, like connect with my parents, talk to my siblings, take some time to have a one-on-one conversation with my husband. And that really does that fills me back up again. That gives me the energy and like emotional sustenance to perform the next day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hildana, great show. Keep doing the good work. Have a safe and great holiday. Thank you, Hildana, and
thank
happy
you
holiday too.
You too.
Taryn is agreeing with that. Yeah, it's the things that we feel is so simplistic, but it just makes a huge difference, especially when you're doing so many things, and especially even as a mom. Sometimes people joke like, "Oh, you forgot to shower," So just having that little time for yourself and having that practice, I think is a great thing.
Absolutely. I have to give a lot of credit to my husband for that. I think that one of my greatest advantages is that I have a partner who fights for me and my time, my personal time, even when I don't. So he's often the one who's like nudging me, go take care of yourself, because he knows that I'll feel lower. I'll regret it if I don't take a little bit of time out,
Yeah.
So, awesome. Yeah.
If you had access to a time machine, where would you go and why? Past or the future?
Ooh. Let me think about that for 1 second. I think that I would, past or future. Oh my gosh. Should this be an art, like an art question or like a personal question?
You have a time machine, a full tank of gas.
Ooh. On an artistic level, I would love to have been in New York in the 1950s and 60s, with all of these incredible artists, in the decade or so prior, coming over from Europe, and then with the establishment of this, uniquely American style of abstract expressionism, and then advancing into, all of like minimalist art and op art. And I think I would have loved to have been there for the drama, like Clement Greenberg and all of his opinions, hitting the newspapers and the magazines at the time. I would have loved to have seen people's responses, because we know how people feel now about these works of art that changed the world, and they have all this status and respect associated with them. But I would have loved to have been there for the most raw responses, when people, especially living in this time where the concept of new is almost a redundant question. This whole this sort of like driving force of discovering something new in art or making a new statement is just not really very relevant. Not that it cannot be done, but wow, it is so much more done now than it was then. So I wish that I wish that I'd been there for the controversy. You know, if we think about the banana on the wall during Art Basel last year, I mean, there were hundreds of bananas on the wall from the 1940s, you know, and 50s onward, especially in this country. So I wish that I had seen that, and I wonder what I would have felt, you know, because I'm very, as much as I'm very comfortable with, you know, conceptual art. I always, when I teach my students, I go to a very, very, you know, fundamental, technical place that sort of stems from like the atelier experience. So knowing that like that's what I preach, I wonder what I would have thought. So there's that. I would love to go 75 years. I also think about some concepts that are strange to us now or challenging to us now, just like social concepts, psychological concepts. And I would like to go to a time where those conversations are not new anymore. And I would love to know like how people solve those problems, you know, or how they addressed these concerns, and almost be, and I hope it's 50 years from now. I would love for it to be my lifetime. Maybe it'll be 100, 150 years from now. I really hope that progress doesn't take that long. But, you know, I would love to be teaching and talking to students about these concepts that are just givens, you know, they've been solved. They're notes in history books, you know, we're so grateful to have like closed these pages. And I would just love to see what that looks like. So that's, yeah, those are my two. I would either go 50 years, you know, 70 years back, or maybe 70 years in the future.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great choices. Absolutely. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? See what you're up to, what a show, art, you name
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. So definitely, as far as the Frank goes, we have our general email address, and that actually comes straight through to me. So I do receive those messages. I see everything that comes through, and we do respond. So again, thefrank@ppines.com. And then my website is www.tarynmoller.com. You can see it at the bottom of the screen there.
Yes.
I do update it regularly. And if you go there, you can find all of my socials and my contacts. So all of the information is there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's just been such a pleasure to talk with you. We've worked together a couple of times in the past, and I'm always, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to more opportunities. But I just love having you on this circle and sharing and getting a little bit, you know, more information about the things that you're up to and what you've come from and all those things. So just thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Niki. It's so wonderful to talk to you. And, you know, a lot of you out there might not know this, but I got to know Niki, I think it was the year before I became a mom. She has just been the most amazing person to work with. Have you spoken about your Arts for All work on this show at all? Arts for All Florida?
It's been a while. I probably mentioned it during the time, but yeah.
So so at the Frank, we formed a partnership with Arts for All Florida, and they provide, you know, amazing quality art education experiences to persons and children with disabilities. And we're very, very lucky to be their visual arts partner in Broward County, the only one. And Niki came to us as their teaching artist, actually teaching students at the Frank, and the students, you know, they went through a program with Niki, and then the course culminated in one of our favorite exhibitions that we've ever had at the Frank. And that's one of the things that I love most is exhibitions like that, you know, where students who are so used to feeling like so much is out of reach for them. You know, they like literally have their work on the walls of this beautiful space, and we're right there cheering them on. We couldn't do that without people, artists, and instructors like you, Niki. You're so amazing to see with them, and I've loved every opportunity to see you in action. It's been so wonderful. So thank you for everything that you've done for us and our students and our community.
Thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual. I loved it at the Frank. It was amazing. And, I like to, working with the children, because a lot of times too, like you said, they may not have access, or they don't, or sometimes even if they have teachers who care, sometimes they're, can be a little babied in certain ways. And so one of the highlights for me when, a caring teacher is someone who's like, well, they may not be able to do this. And then half an hour later, wait, did that kid do that? Are you going to give them your camera? And so exploring with them and I love the, because usually I'm going into the classroom or the juvenile detention center. So at the Frank, we're in a gallery space, and sometimes incorporating that where they went to say, okay, look at the sculpture, and now we're going to do something connected to what we just saw. So I just love it. It was a beautiful experience.
It was so great. And you're absolutely right. You give them so much autonomy and independence. And there were many moments where I was just completely surprised, like taken aback by the level of initiative and progress that would happen within one class. It was so amazing. And you really just guide them along the way. And not everyone can do that. So thank you for bringing your gift to us at the Frank in the city of Pembroke Pines.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We have Karen saying, so glad I joined tonight. You both inspire me. Yes, I'm happy. Karen's like, wait a minute, that's my beautiful neighbor.
I know. Karen is my beautiful neighbor. Talk about an artist and an inspiring mom. Karen is one of the most supportive, encouraging people. So I'm glad that we could inspire you, but you inspire us.
Yes. I met Karen some years ago. She's a Mina sister. It was a professional development, self-development women's group a few years back that we were in the same program. It was really great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I didn't talk to you all evening. So usually a half an hour show. Sometimes it does go over, but I appreciate so many of you all that have stuck it out for the hour and 12 minutes with us. Wow. You guys are still rocking here. So, and I appreciate you staying on longer, Taryn, to really go through and take time. We have a lot of stuff to go through, and I really wanted to showcase as much as possible. So I really thank you for that. And so for those who've been following me, I've been going live since January 2018. I'm tired. No.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I've been coerced by my team member to kind of take a little break. And so Taryn is going to be the last live interview for a couple of weeks. So we're going to take a break. We still have people lined up coming on the circle once we get back into the new year. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. So we'll probably, play a couple of, previous sessions of the circle. Please, if you don't have access to Facebook or YouTube, or you want to hear it as a podcast, you could go to any of the favorite podcasts. This will be up there in a couple of days. And so listen to it, watch it, share it. Someone in your network may want to be an artist that, combines their art and science into one. Someone out there wants to start their curatorial practice, and you could be that catalyst to inspire them to start that journey by sharing Taryn's story. So if you could share that would be amazing. The circle is brought to you by Niki Lopez Creative, as well as What's Your Elephant. What's Your Elephant is a movement that uses the arts to create spaces, safe spaces, to talk about everything unspoken. So if you want more information about What's Your Elephant, you could go to what'syourelephant.org. You could also go to my link tree. It's Niki Lopez 19 to get more of the links. Thank you all who's here live with us. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. I saw a comment from Periscope. Thank you so much. And thank you to those who's going to watch it on the replay. I guess, Taryn, do you have any final words to close us out?
I think just generally, thank you so much for making sure that we stay connected with one another. I think that community is more important now than ever. I hope that throughout this whole process, whenever it is that we do come out of this, I'm really looking forward to the Clouds Party and people rushing out to museums and galleries and each other's shows. But thanks to you, Niki, for helping to keep us all connected in the meantime. Yes. To anyone out there, the Frank is much more than a art gallery. It looks like a museum, and a lot of people call it the museum, but it really exists, as like a home for everyone who loves the arts. So we're here for you, no matter what level of your art journey you're at, regardless of what degree of education and experience you've had. Please come and connect with us. Follow us on social media. When we do open our doors back up, please come, say hi to me. I'll be waiting to give you a hug or shake your hand or whatever is safe at the time. But it's really a place of just, warmth and connection. So I really do welcome everyone, join us digitally, and I can't wait to see you in person, hopefully next year.
Yes. And to that, we will say good night, and I will see you all next year. All right. Happy holidays.
Have a great night, Niki. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.